Hey everyone, welcome to today's game between Thrail and Peytr. We're going to be running a beta test game between two new players, and they're going to be trying out the game against each other for the first time. So we've got Thrail deck on the left and Peytr's deck on the right. On the left here we have Neruz, Vuluk, Thrail, and Pillabong, Thrail in the center. And on the Peytr side of things, Kane, Peytr, Zanya, and Vorn. There's a gap in the middle, so we'll see how that plays out. First things first, Peytr is going to go, and he's going to start with Call to Arms with activating Vorn. That means the Knight is going to come out. He needs to discard a card for that. And sure enough, the Knight sits right in front of Vorn. That is the Knowledge action being played. No reactions from Thrail. Uh, yep, it seems like Vorn is going to put out a bonus action to discard a card value of 2 to bring out a cultist. That'll sit right next to Peytr, so that will play in really nicely. Cultists can take damage for Peytr, so they're basically chump blockers. That should end the turn for Peytr, and we'll be looking at Thrail now, seeing who's going to make the opening Thrail. And it seems like Vuluk will be the first one to come in. Just going to cast Bones, discarding a card to draw a card. Not sure if Thrail was happy with that draw. Seems like he will be activating. And it should be Peytr's turn. But it seems like Thrail actually has a move before he wants to finish that. He wants to play Visions of Glory, discarding a card from hand, and is drawing 2 cards because the card he also discarded as a cost has 2 sphere values. So that should be happy for Thrail. Pretty much spent 3 cards and still has 4 cards. Should have 4 cards left in his hand. Peytr, moving up now. Zanya is activating, this time moving diagonally, and casting Throw Missile onto Pillabong, who is 2 spaces in front of her. This is kind of curious because it is leaving Zanya in a very vulnerable position after this. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. Unless there's some sort of bonus movement that they can do to reinforce Zanya after this. This is a very, very apparent mistake. But damage goes through, hits Pillabong for 1, and there's a burn counter because of Zanya's burn ability. So that means Pillabong will take 1 damage at the start of the next round. Thrail activates now. Thrail himself is going to move forward, and I don't see any other targets except for Zanya. So he's probably going to move up now. Thinking. But ultimately probably going to settle on to Zanya. Great. Ultimately, so Zanya is under attack by Thrail, attack power 3, but casting Pierce, so Zanya's defense of 2 becomes a defense of 1. So that would deal 2 damage, which would be lethal, unless Peytr has something to react to that. He does not, and Zanya is first victim to fall in this game, and Thrail gets ahead by 2 points, only building up that exalt for Peytr. And Thrail gets a Spectre token, of course, from a successful attack on Zanya. Thinking real hard here. That's quite a blow, having Zanya taken out very early on in the game. Zanya is one of the stronger players with the range attack and burn. So Thrail taps. Now Peytr gets to go forward. And it seems like his move is done. But it's, yep, upon advice, Peytr is going to just use his combat action to charge up that fire token. So that puts it up to 2. And by the start of the next round, he'll probably have 3. So 3 points is pretty good for an exalt attack. Next up, Thrail, deciding between narrows the axeman on that left, and he does go for it. He's going to play Bloodlust. Narrows gains a bonus attack, bonus movement, and of course +1 to adjacent enemies. I can only see one apparent target, and that is Peytr and Cult. Narrows moves up 2 with an additional bonus movement of 1. So that will be lethal to the cultist and potentially lethal to Peytr. Peytr uses up Kane's field ability to defeat a hero and prevent a tactic card from being played, which means that that move is not going to go forward, actually. Narrows is going to have to come back. So they're just discussing the logistics of the game, which means this card, the card played has to be discarded, but the card that was discarded as a cost does come back to hand. Just a few clarifications on death row there. Kane actually goes into the first column, whereas Zanya goes into the second column. So Thrail still has his move now. That's Neru's who's being activated, which means that they're waiting on Neru's to see what else he can do. I think he has a combat action left and he has a movement left. So he's just gonna go straight up to the knight, who's being um, reinforced by Vorn. So that's a 2 shield for the knight. Neru's attack is at 3, and he gains 1 damage. The knight gains 1 damage. So that's pretty much all he could probably do for Neru's. Cultist moving behind Peytr to reinforce Peytr right there, and using combat action to revive Zanya. So that's good. That pretty much leaves Pillabong. We're just gonna fast forward this bit a little bit because there was a lot of contemplation after this. But having said that, the entire outlook of the game, there's definitely 2 parties at play here. There's definitely a split the party look to the game. Thrail can easily go into round 2 and just divide and conquer this particular set. Peytr is not in the best position. You want Peytr to kind of be charging that exalt, but at the same time be reinforced by a lot of bodyguards. So everyone is untapping at the moment to start the second round. Thrail is leading by 4. Peytr needs a really good exalt to take out maybe Thrail and Pillabong right there, or potentially 5 points, which would technically put him in the lead. Zanya, Knight, Volin could join forces to possibly take out Neros or even Voluk. Voluk would unbelievably be a little bit harder to hit with his ability, giving everyone a -1 to their attacks. So Peytr gets to go first now because of the behind on points rule. Thrail is leading by 4, which means the one behind on points gets to start first. Just a little bit of contemplation here, what the next move is, and I would have probably elected to go with Zanya. And we're just going to fast forward again this part just a little bit. There seems to be a lot of contemplation, and I wouldn't blame Peytr right now. Thrail takes a look at Peytr's champion card. While that was happening, Peytr plays a knowledge card. Looks like he's taking out an ally, so that does appear to be Angry Mob, which means he discards a card from his hand and places a number of allies named Angry Mob, discards 1 to get 1 Angry Mob. And Angry Mob is one of those taunt-like characters or allies, where anyone adjacent to them, the enemy, is not allowed to attack anyone else. And Peytr now is surprisingly going to activate his Exalt. The Exalt is activated, but he only has 3 on that fire token, which means that's only going to do 3 damage to Thrail. It's going to take out Pillbong, which gives Peytr 2 points. But that, curiously enough, that is a strange move. I would have waited until the 3rd round to do that. Interesting. Well, damage has been done. Thrail is about to activate Narrows now and strike on the Knight, who's taken 1 damage. He's down to 1, and he's going to respond to that attack with Dodge. Adds +1 bonus movement to character that is the target of an attack, which is the Knight himself. Thrail here receiving instructions saying that he can react to a knowledge card being played. So that is a reaction to a current reaction, and he is about to play a card. Just trying to choose which one is a good one. And he will play We Hunt, We Kill. That gives 2 characters 1+1 bonus movement, but he needs to discard a card, which he just did. Narrows and Thrail moves up, which means that Peytr is again in a vulnerable state. I mean, he still has the cultists to help him with the damage and shield. That is interesting. Peytr now is going to react, and he's wasting his cards on a Knight. That is interesting. He's going to waste his cards on a Knight, which means that the Knight gets to survive. But I don't believe that's allowed to happen. We Hunt, We Kill has a mechanic in there that specifically says that you're not allowed to respond to the card being played. So Narrows gives up on the attack on the Knight and instead makes his move action, his proper move action, towards the angry mob. More importantly, he is flanking Peytr, so that's not going to be good. Peytr's activation now, Vorn activates and attacks Thrail. Really curious. I don't think Thrail can make that movement, actually. I think Thrail only has one to his movement, so he can't really do that. Yep, that's correct. So Zanya is going to head up instead. And Zanya still has Peytr flanking him, as Thrail's pointing out. So Thrail is going to play a block and strike to add to Thrail's defense, which is going to be up to 3 now. And he gets a +1 to his next attack this round. Zanya, however, this is really interesting. This is a very bad position for Zanya. But Zanya's going to go through the attack anyway. Nothing's going to go through, which kind of sets up Peytr to hit. Sorry, it kind of sets up Thrail to hit Peytr. This is looking pretty bad for Peytr here, and Zanya is not exactly in a position where she's safe. She's not being flanked by anyone. She's going to be open to an attack. Thrail is yet to move, and Vuluk. So the attack is going to attack Peytr. The cultist takes 1 damage away from Peytr's hit, which will amount to 3 hit points to Peytr. And Thrail adds a knowledge card this round, the Block and Strike. Remember, the last block and strike was played in the last previous turn during his defense. So having 2 block and strikes, that's going to add another one, and that's going to take out Peytr. That is 3 points for Thrail, and that is 8-2. This is looking like a proper massacre. So Thrail taps, and Still has the tokens and Vorn, but it's a very outside chance of winning at this point. I believe for Peytr. So that's not good. We're looking at um, the knights, the angry mob, and Vorn left to attack. Vulug, of course, hasn't actually come into play this round, um, other than using Cast of Bones in the first round. So that's pretty interesting. Vorn, curiously enough, revives Kane, and I'm only going to assume that's the case because he didn't have enough to revive Peytr. Oh, this is not looking good. Vulug now acts, and he's going to add Staggering Blow to Zanya, which means that if the attack is successful, it adds a +1 to Zanya's defense. Peytr's not even going to fight it. Zanya's going in, and this is a proper massacre now. This is a proper massacre. It's 10-2. A lot of the positioning for Peytr went wrong there. I think there was a lot to consider, um, but he could have at least tried to take out Nero's instead of going for Peytr. That was a strange decision, and Peytr's Exalt is now wasted. That's also another strange decision. Uh, but right now, Thrail has all the advantage, and I don't see how this game can end any other way except for a Thrail victory right now. Um, your champion and your best fighter is out, and right now Vorn is about to activate. He is going to pay 2 cards just so that he can revive Peytr, but that is not going to cut it because Peytr will not be able to act this round on the third round. There's really no point to it, actually. Neros strikes on his turn and kills the angry mob, and that is another point for Thrail. There's no coming back from this one. Unfortunately, there's really just nothing doing right now. And probably just one more move from Neros, and the handshake comes in. So that concludes this game. It was pretty much a game of missteps from Peytr. There was a lot of uh, considerations that were not taken before moves were made. And for example, the defense reinforcements of Thrail was pretty strong. There was no way to overcome that. It could have been probably a case of not having enough cards or the right cards at the right time. But positioning is really, really key, and this was a good example of how not to position your characters when playing a game of Everlight. That's gonna do it for us here for today, and we're gonna try and post these kind of games every week or at least once a week during beta. So hope you guys would join us for the next one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.